Judges? Better? All right, you ready? Oh, let me share it because sometimes Logan likes to watch. Oh, nope, he dipped. Judge chapter 10 through chapter 11, when God finds it hard to be tough. Judge chapter 10 begins with a brief account of two further deliverers called Tolo and Jar, and relates how Israel again gave itself to serving other gods, which leads to God's subjugating it to the Philistines on the west and the Ammonites on the Philistines on the west and the Ammonites on the east. Christ, your holy, amazing. Reading the book of Judges is a rough book. When you read ancient accounts and just a terrible atrocities that happened then and are happening now. But we do know that we look at your goodness, King Jesus, and you're just good. You're the most beautiful living being ever. How you just were the first to, with ultimate power, lay it down. And so that, and in your resurrection, you have brought the kingdom, sin and death. You brought out the ultimate evil, sin and death. And you took its power and you said, no longer has any rule and reign. And you're ruling and reigning now. And as that kingdom is birthing in the now, please reveal to us what the ancient writings mean. What it means then and in the light of your goodness and your death and resurrection. And today, how the hell do we apply it? Amen. Maybe meditate on it. So Israelites cried out to Yahweh. So multiple people, a couple other people that Yahweh used to save the Israelites, they then go do bad stuff again. The Israelites cried out to Yahweh. We have done wrong against you because we have abandoned our God and served the masters. Yahweh said to the Philistines, yes, from the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Philistines, and the Sidonians and Amalek and Maon, they oppressed you. And you cried out to me, and I delivered you from their hand. But you abandoned me and served other gods, so I will not deliver you again. Go and cry out to the gods you choose. They must deliver you in your time of distress. The Israelites said to Yahweh, we have done wrong. You yourself deal with us in accordance with what seems good in your eyes. Only do rescue us this day. They removed the foreign gods from their midst and served Yahweh. And his heart was overwhelmed by Israel's misery. The Ammonites summoned themselves and camped in Gilead. And the Israelites assembled and camped on Mizpah. The company, the officers of Gilead, said to one another, who is the man who will be first to fight the Ammonites? He'll be head over all the people who live in Gilead. Now, Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a powerful warrior, but he was the son of an immoral woman. Gilead had fathered Jephthah, but Gilead's wife had borne him sons. And when his wife's sons grew up, they threw Jephthah out and said to him, you will have no share in our father's household, because you are the son of another woman. So Jephthah ran away from his brothers and lived in good country. His armed men gathered around Jephthah and went out fighting with him. Verse 40-28 relate how, in light of Jephthah's reputation, the Gileadites invite him back to lead them against the Ammonites, who claim that the Israelites took from the land Gilead occupies. Jephthah denies that this is so. Yahweh's spirit came on Jephthah, and he crossed to Gilead and Manasseh, crossed to Mizpah and Gilead, and from Mizpah in Gilead, crossed to the Ammonites. So, Jephthah does not look like to be a pretty good guy. But yet, he's going to use him. He seems morally compromised. Alright. And also has a pretty tragic background. He was kicked out of his family when other guys in the family were born. In my prayers each day, well, most days to be honest, I pray either for the nation or the church in our nation. I do so against the background of the fact that nations grow and triumph and then decline and fall, and that churches do the same. I come from a continent where the church once flourished but is now virtually non-existent. I live in a country where the church once flourished and is now in decline. and might be on the way to the same fate. If I were God, I can indeed be tempted to let the church fall. Yet in context where God has announced the intention to bring people down. There we go. If I were God, I could indeed be tempted to let the church fall. Yet in context where God has announced the intention to bring a people down, the Old Testament sets before us examples of people preaching and also praying against the odds, and of God having a change of mind about putting the people down. That shapes the way I pray for the nation and the church. I ask God to resist the temptation to decide, that's it, and bring us down. One of my encouragement in doing so is that God has a hard time being tough. It's not so difficult to persuade God to let people have one more chance. So you see that? What is Yahweh's disposition? Yeah, to always give a chance. He will say, like, all right, I'm done. But luckily, like when it comes to grace and sharing and redeeming and looking to him, he lets himself be influenced by us. Once again, the Israelites abandon Yahweh and worship other deities. Once again, they pay for it politically. Once again, they cry out to God. On this occasion, for the first time, God says, I've had enough. The trouble is that God isn't tough enough to maintain that stance. And perhaps the Israelites suspect that is so. When God has said, we're done, I'm not rescuing you again, one might have expected that they would say, okay, no good turning to him then. In fact, they turn back to God even though God has told them of this intention to let them stew in their own juices. Perhaps they indeed suspect God's lack of strength of character to do so, or perhaps they turn back because they know it is the right thing to do even if it gets them nowhere. One context in which it is worth reading these stories is that of the Judahite people in exile. At the end of the story that runs through Judges, Samuel, and Kings, God's eventually letting Jerusalem fall to Babylon is the ultimate expression of God saying, I'm through. Yet in that context, the story in Kings and the prayers and lamentations represent the people's casting themselves on God and saying, yes, we have done terribly wrong. We have no claim on you. All we can do is throw ourselves on your mercy. Then all they can do is wait. These stories and Judges might be an encouragement to them. Maybe God will not be able to maintain the tough stance. But it was in this story, God's heart is overwhelmed by their misery. More literally, God's soul or person or spirit is short at their misery. Usually the word implies being ineffective or feeble or impatient. It can suggest not having the inner resources to put up with something any longer. God lacks the inner resources to put up with Israel's suffering, even though they deserve it. God cannot resist the temptation to act on their behalf. Admittedly, how things turn out makes that seem less wonderful than you might have expected. Perhaps this again shows the way God works with the potentials of peoples in this situation. Like the other crises in Judges, this one affects a particular part of the country and affects particular clans. In this case, it is Gilead, the area east of the Jordan where Reuben, Gad, and half Manasseh live. It is thus an area especially vulnerable to people such as the Ammonites who live south of Gilead. The man to whom the clans turn is a complicated person with a background rather like Abimelech. The translation describe him as the son of a prostitute, but the words require only that he be the son of a woman who breaks the society's sexual codes, and he may thus simply be a boy born in an affair between his father, who is also called Gilead, and a single girl in the village. Either way, he has a status not so different from Abimelech's. His father accepted responsibility for him, but everyone knew he was illegitimate, and when all Gilead's sons were grown up, they threw him out. Maybe experience and exclusion drove him to achievement as it drove Abimelech, and he became an outstanding warrior whom the Gileadites therefore called back to lead them against the Ammonites. Good Country is a place farther northeast of Gilead. The striking name suggests he was doing well, but the men he got involved with were the opposite. That begins to illustrate Jephthah's ambiguity. It emerges further in his initial negotiations with the Ammonites, which involve him in giving them a long lesson in relations between Israel and the people east of the Jordan, largely as these are recounted in the Torah. The Ammonites accuse the Gileadites of appropriating their lands. Jephthah argues that they did no such thing. They made a point of seeking to avoid encroachment on any territory east of the Jordan. They did end up taking over land belonging to the Amorites, not Edom, Moab, or Ammon. As a result of the Amorites' insistence on attacking the Israelites, but anyway, he goes on. What about the statute of limitation? This all happened 3 centuries before. When the Ammonites are unconvinced, the Spirit of God comes on Jephthah as it once came on Gideon, though not on Abimelech. He is inspired to race through the area east of the Jordan, presumably gathering forces, as he prepares to face the Ammonites. Like Elijah racing King Ahab back to Samaria when the hand of the Lord comes on him. Then comes the most faithful moment in his story. After Abimelech, we might think judges cannot reach any lower points. We would be wrong. All right, you want to read another section, or do you want to do Bible part? All right.
So I've got a question that's always bothered me. The Bible says there's one God, but in other parts of the Bible, God is 3, Father, Son, and Spirit. How can it be both?
Yeah, this is a question that has mystified people for thousands of years. And while we can't fully explain it, I think we can better understand what it is that we can't fully understand.
What do you mean?
Well, think of it this way. Here's a 2-dimensional plane. And then here's an object with 3 dimensions that's going to pass through the 2D plane.
Okay, right. From this perspective, the 3D objects above and below the plane.
So now it makes sense, but imagine you were a 2D person stuck on the 2D plane. What would you see?
I don't know. What would I see?
Well, it would look like this.
Oh, yeah, okay. From this perspective, it looks impossible. It's 1 object, and then 2 objects, and then 3.
But in reality, they're all one, just not in a way you're capable of understanding. Now, let's take this whole thing as a visual analogy for how we experience God. The claim in the Bible is that God is transcendent, a divine being through whom we live and move and have our being. Or, as God says, I am.
Okay, but I live here in this universe, so when God appears, it will make sense in some ways, but in other ways, it will break my categories.
Exactly. This happens all the time when people encounter the God of the Bible. So let's look first at how this happens in the Hebrew Scriptures. Throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, God appears in complicated ways that don't quite fit our categories. One common way this happens is with God's attributes.
So an attribute is a way to describe what something is like. For example, a soccer ball is round.
Right.
Or God is wise.
Yeah, great. Let's take God's wisdom. So the book of Proverbs says that God created the world by his wisdom. But then there are also poems in the book of Proverbs that describe God's wisdom as a person, a co-worker through whom God architected the universe.
So God's attribute becomes a separate character?
Yeah, this also happens with God's glory, which sometimes appears as a human figure on a throne that's engulfed in fire. Or take God's word, which he can speak to people, but sometimes his word appears like a person.
Wait, so God's attributes have become new little gods?
No, the biblical authors believe there's only one all-powerful God.
But they're comfortable talking about them as different characters.
Yeah, this is part of the way that the biblical authors portray the one God's complex identity. They're God's attributes, and also distinct from God.
Distinct from God, and also God.
Yes. Once we learn to spot that way of talking about God's identity, you begin to see it all over the Scriptures. In fact, you find it in the first sentences of the Bible that mention the Spirit of God. So the opening line of the Bible is pretty familiar.
In the beginning, God created.
But then keep reading. Who is it that we see within creation hovering over the waters?
The Spirit of God.
Yeah, so the Spirit refers to God's personal presence and energy that we can interact with here within creation.
And so the Bible can refer to God's Spirit as distinct from God.
Distinct from God, and also God. It's God's Spirit. And while this sounds strange from our point of view, this complexity is what the biblical authors are trying to get us to see. So we've looked at God's attributes and God's Spirit. Now let's make our last stop exploring God's complex identity in the Hebrew Scriptures with a character called the Son of Man. So in the Bible, there's only one God that people are to worship, which makes this story in the book of Daniel really surprising. Daniel has a dream about a human figure called the Son of Man. which means a member of humanity. And Daniel dreams about this human getting elevated on a cloud, up and then higher up.
Up into God's space.
Yes, and then this human sits at the right hand of God's heavenly throne, and all humanity worships this human alongside God.
A human where I expect to see God.
Yeah, this human is a part of God's identity. This vision is about the climactic hope of the whole biblical story. God and humanity become one so they can rule the world together as one.
So the Son of Man is distinct from God and also God.
Exactly. So, think back over everything we've looked at. In the Hebrew scriptures, God's identity is complex. And so, when Jesus' followers encountered God as the Father, Son, and the Spirit, they already had categories for how these could all be the one God of the Bible.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay, so in the New Testament, we're introduced to Jesus of Nazareth. And he's human, but way more. His favorite title to call himself was the Son of Man.
The figure in Daniel's vision.
And the claim is that he is this complex God become human to unite other humans with God.
Okay, so the Gospels portray Jesus as fully human.
And also as Yahweh, the God of Israel. Jesus went around saying and doing things that only Yahweh can do, like forgiving people's sins or calming the chaotic waters.
So they're saying Jesus is a human, distinct from God, and also God.
Yeah, and that might sound crazy unless you've been reading the Hebrew scriptures, which prepared you for it. And then check this out. Jesus' first followers, the apostles, talked about his identity using the language of God's attributes. They called Jesus the glory of God, or the apostle Paul called Jesus the wisdom of God. Or John opens his gospel calling Jesus the Word of God through whom the world was created. And then he says, the Word was with God and was God.
Okay, I get what they're doing, and it hurts my brain.
Totally. And if you want to spin your brain even more, consider this. Jesus, who's portrayed as God become human, would talk to God as a distinct person. And when he did, he called him Father. When Jesus talked about God, he wasn't referring to an abstract force or energy. He was talking about a personal being that you can relate to.
There's a lot of personal images of God in the Bible. Ruler, creator, judge.
But Jesus consistently referred to God as my Father. Jesus experienced God as a source of infinite love. He said, "The Father has loved me since before the creation of the world." Apparently, Jesus knew the Father as an eternally others-centered, life-giving being.
Right, like in the story about Jesus' baptism, when the Father says from heaven, "This is my Son whom I love."
And then keep reading. In that story, the person who brings that message of love from the Father to the Son is the Spirit of God.
So we've talked about God's Spirit. Here within creation, it's through the Spirit that we interact with the divine.
Yeah, and the same was true for Jesus. Through the Spirit, he experienced the Father's love. But it didn't stop there. Jesus promised that through him, the Spirit would go out and share the Father's love with all humanity and with all creation.
So it can look like these are three distinct gods, but in some way that transcends my view of reality, they're also one.
Right. This is what later followers of Jesus called the Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit are the one God of the Bible.
I could see how they got there.
But this isn't just a philosophy puzzle. To describe God as a triunity is to claim that the universe is held together by an eternal community of love.
Which is something that I can't really understand.
But the God of the Bible isn't a being that you understand. The point is to know and be known by this God so that we can participate in his love.
That was a pretty crazy video. All right. What stood out to you? Mm-hmm. It first identified. Hmm.
You have three forms, but they're all combined into one. It's like the elements. Like you have fire, water, and wind, but it's all combined into one.
What's crazy is the early writers identify him as attributes: wisdom, glory. John talks about my word. John talks about Jesus as the word. Paul talks about Jesus as the wisdom. And then there's also, I forgot who said it, but the glory. That Jesus was the glory. And so there's this weird interconnectedness, but also whole oneness, working together in love. All right, friend, we can start. All right, what's my download at? 25%. Hmm. All right, while waiting for this download. Oh wait, I play Backpack Hero because of Justin. The download's going really slow. Where's it downloading from? There's no. All right, I'll be back. I don't know. You have to look it up. That seems like it's the parry button. You have to have a shield for it, though. Hmm. the whole shift. Again. Oh, that's funny. Oh. Oh. I don't have them on me. I left without them on me. What are you up to? Ah. Huh? Makes sense. Called Hell is Other Demons. I'm waiting for my download if you came here for some Kingdom Hearts.
Hello?
Hey, Justin.
Hey, Corey.
Wow, you sound pretty bad right now.
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
That makes sense.
There, at least I'm not on speaker now.
There you go.
How you doing?
Doing okay.
Yeah, I just got off work. I'm sitting in my car before I drive back home. How are you doing, my friend?
Woo. Doing well. Trying an interesting game called Hell is Other Demons.
Oh? I thought, according to Discord, you're playing Kingdom Hearts.
Well, that's the plan. I'm waiting for the download.
Ah,
That'll be faster, but it's only downloading off Epic on 10 megabytes per second right now.
yeah. I do hope you enjoy it because it's quite a bit different than the original version.
Yeah, I remember my sister. My sister had the original like on her DS.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning it. But yeah, that one's quite complicated, and hopefully you'll like it because there's quite a bit of a story and lore in it for Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But you'll have to play through it twice
Oh, really?
because there's 2 stories.
Interesting. Like 2 different people?
Yeah.
Oh.
I guess that counts as a spoiler, but I wanted to let you know so that way you were prepared for
Here for
going
you.
through a second playthrough.
Here you go. So you can see what I'm playing.
I'm on my phone. I can't really do that.
Can't. Oh, you can't watch it while talking?
Unless you want me to sound terrible.
Oh yeah, you took it off speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, yesterday was just hectic. My family was doing a lot of stuff with football, and there was a lot of things going on.
Oh, so you had company over that kind of thing?
That and they were just really in a football mood, and it was noisy, and they were doing a lot of stuff. And I was also a bit tired that day because I knew I'd have to get to work today, and it'd be a longer day.
That's fine. It worked out.
Well, I wanted to say hi because I know you you sounded a little worried.
Yeah. I mean, usually, like it's understand. Like, usually, I'm the one who's like, "Oh, something came up," like, and so, you know, of course, I will be a little concerned for you. Oh,
Right.
oh, my.
Even I have some days.
Uh,
Everything okay, my friend?
Yeah. So you're stripping right now and playing Hell is Other Demon while I wait for
Yeah,
Kingdom Hearts to
yeah.
download.
And something just happened in it, I guess.
Yeah, I just died. You know,
Ah,
terrible about multitasking. Especially a game that is very pixel perfect dodges. But this has a decent soundtrack, so it makes it worth pushing through.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna be a bit before I'm actually finished home because I need to get gas and stuff
Okay,
too. So
sounds good. But yeah, we were going to play Elden
Actually-
Rings, but Charlie right now wanted to try Elden Ring. That's why I'm playing things not on Steam right now.
yeah,
So I'm using Steam Share.
right.
You know how Steam is. I can't even play your games. He's playing my game.
That is true. Well, you have a good time, friend. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you later.
Yep, talk to you later. Bye, man. Peace.
See ya.
Hmm. I have not played that game. I guess the same concept. Oh, can I play? I see. The game based off 21st century. Ah. Oh, see ya. Bye. That was fun. All right. Okay. Oh, let's do this. Oh, looks like you gave up on Elden Ring. Okay. Not so easy now that you actually tried it, right? Hmm. Interesting. Hmm. All right. If anyone here is just joining, I am going to do this really fast. Take a quick break, and then we'll start off with some. Yeah. All right, Terry, we gotta go through step, my friend.